On this episode of Paint Society, we're going to get in detail about how to lay down a beautiful coat of clear coat, as well as choosing the correct clear coat for the job. We'll also discuss the importance of keeping a wet edge. The results in the end will stun you. You're sure to learn something. What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Paint Society, the channel where learning doesn't stop when the video ends. Now, we've all been here before where we laid down a beautiful coat of base and we are ready to clear. And this, for some people, can be the scary part. I feel your pain. You put down your clear coat, it's got fish eyes, it's got orange peel, it's uneven, and you really can feel down about yourself really quick. So in this video, we're going to teach you a little bit of tricks to help you lay a smoother coat on your hood. Now, being that this is Paint Society, a group of people here to learn about paint, also means I have a lot of professionals down in the comments. So make sure you leave your tips and tricks for everyone so we can share those and also learn from you guys. What we're going to teach today is what a wet edge is. We're going to go over how tight our passes should be, what our first coat should look like, and our second, as well as expectations. Now, when I use the words real expectations, what I mean is we're gonna have a beautiful finish on this hood that is still gonna have some dirt and debris here and there that will need to be wet sanded and buffed. Do not get discouraged. You're gonna have some of that in your paint job, even in a professional setting. But the tips and tricks we're about to go over, it's gonna help eliminate that. Now, the number one misconception is that I get dirt when I spray the clear. But what you guys are not realizing is that the dirt was always there to begin with. What you want is a very smooth base coat. So if your base coat is not smooth, you can go ahead and sand it with a 800 grit and then give it one or two more coats and help smooth it out, and it'll be a lot better for your clear. Your tack rag should kind of glide over the surface. Do you see how it's gliding? And yeah, I don't prefer to use a brand new tack rag. I like a tack rag that's kind of been used a few times. It's still clean. I kind of flip it over. And that way I'm not being too aggressive. So that's number one. If you do not have a fresh and smooth base coat, you're never gonna have a fresh and smooth clear coat. Clear coat is just gonna highlight the defects that are under. So as you're feeling it, once again, if you feel a bump or something, yeah, go ahead, get yourself some 800 grit, maybe 1,000, and just go over that area. Or if it's all over the whole entire hood, go ahead and smooth it out. And then when you're ready to clear, we'll start there. Now, most of your orange peel is gonna come from what you decide to use as your clear. You have to be informed. You are the painter. So when you go into that paint store, you can't expect the salesman to know exactly everything. Some of them have painted before, some of them are just salesmen, okay? You're the guys that are working every day in the heat, you're the painters. So what you guys need to understand is it is extremely hot, and even in around 70 to 80 degree weather, it's still not a bad idea to use slow. So you're already defeating yourself if you're using the incorrect clear coat for the job. Some clears will stay open longer, and that's gonna help it smooth out a touch, and then some are quick. So make sure that you go ahead and choose the right clear, check the technical data sheets of all the clears, and do your homework. For here, I'm using our slow 2-pack Autoclear. It's phenomenal clear, and it's gonna be able to smooth out even a touch after we spray it. So let's discuss our passes right now when we are on a hood. Now, the number one way to make me cringe is by starting the clear coat in the middle of the hood. That's something you never want to do. The reason why is you lose your wet edge. And what a wet edge is we're keeping the end of our pattern consistently wet. So for example, when I spray here, the wet edge is where the pattern ends. We're carrying that wet edge over, okay? If we were to start in the middle, okay, and come all the way this way, then the wet edge in the middle of the hood is already started to dry. So when we clear on this side, what happens is that new clear does not melt into that old, and you're gonna have a fuzzy dry area right here. So make sure once again that we're keeping it consistently all the way throughout the whole entire panel. Now, this is an SUV, not the world's tallest, but in the middle of that hood towards the windshield is gonna be tough. this is not like base coat. We don't need to consistently spray it the same fashion. If we need to, in the middle of the hood, we can actually go the other direction just to get something there for our clear to stick on. Let's go ahead, let's mix up some clear, and let's start to show you what we mean by our wet edge, our tight overlap, and our consistent passes. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you some passes with the wet edge. I'm around 33 PSI on a WS400. I wanted to put it on medium wet, meaning I don't wanna fully soak it on, but I wanna get a nice consistent coat on there. There could be a little bit of peel on there. I'm not worried about that. Okay, so we just sprayed this. We did about 90% overlap. That means we're covering in or around 10% new paint as we move across the panel. This right here is the wet edge. We want to continue moving this wet edge all the way over, so we got to get right back on it. In the middle here, I might need to come and go this way. We'll see what we need to do. So the first coat went down. Now my intention is not fool you. A lot of things look great on camera, but up close, we really want to take a look at what is happening. So on our first coat, we do have some areas that aren't perfectly slick. We do have a little bit of dirt, okay? But we can go over that with our second coat and build just a touch on that second coat, and it will smooth it over really, really nice. Now, the object of the game is to not pound it on so that we cover all that dirt so it's nice and smooth. We don't want to do that because then we can run into solvent issues just enough, and then whatever's left over, we'll just wet sand and buff it. That's the purpose of wet sanding and buffing, okay? But we'll get it as clean as we can. So let's take a look at what we have. So over in this area, we do have a cluster of a little bit of dirt and a little bit of dry peel. I'm not sure if you can pick it up. We also have a little bit of dirt here in this area as well. Now across the hood, we have a little bit of peel. It is not consistently flat, but I am okay with that right now. I just want to get that first coat on so that we can put that second coat on really, really nice. Another question I'll get is, Brian, how long do I wait in between coats? Well, you really need to do yourself a favor and check the technical data sheets. What this clear requires is different from what your clear will use. Typically though, you're in and around 10 minutes. Really let the solvents come out. The solvents are what are in the paint, and if you put that second coat on too quick, okay, the terrible twos, too quick, too fast, too soon, too much, you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna trap all that solvent that's trying to release, right? So then you put that second coat on there, it has nowhere to go. So it's pretty much like a blanket over there. So once it dries, it's gonna pop everywhere, okay? And that's what you call a solvent pop. So this is how we make sure you don't have solvent pop. Making sure your base dries long enough, maybe about 20, 30 minutes, okay? Making sure your clear is dry enough, it's flashed off, 10, 15 minutes, or whatever your technical data sheet says, and then applying it in a proper manner. Now we're about to hit up that second coat. You're gonna see me go a little bit slower, and I'm gonna put a little bit more on. My technique when I spray hoods is I want about maybe 4 to 5 inches away from the panel on that second coat and really lay it down. It's really gonna slick it in, and then whatever's left over, we just buff it out. Now take a look at what happens when we put a nice second wet coat on. A much smoother factory finish with barely any orange peel, just the way it was supposed to be from the day it rolled off the assembly line. Now, if we look closer, we will find a little piece of dirt here and there. This is totally normal, okay? We have some dirt in this area, some dirt in that area that just did not get buried, okay? But from a whole, it looks very nice and I'm very pleased with it. Now, a couple questions I'll get. Brian, can I put a third coat on? Well, I don't recommend it because usually technical data sheets will only recommend 2. That's all we really need. However, if you do intend to wet sand and buff, you can put a third coat on. Just make sure you give even more time. Maybe about 20 minutes before that third coat. Really allow those solvents to come out from the first and the second. But again, I do not suggest it. It usually just gets you into trouble. Now, it does not stop here. The first thing you're gonna wanna do is probably take your hood and put it outside and get it all dry. That way no more dust lands in it. That's the worst thing you can do. All you're doing from there is, again, trapping the top surface and not allowing those solvents to come through. We wanna keep it very open, and the only way to do that is we don't wanna put too much heat on it. I'm not even gonna bake it right now. I'm gonna allow it to sit for about a good 20 minutes. It's about 95 degrees anyways in the booth. Let the solvents come out, and then I'll bake it at a very low temperature, maybe 135 degrees to around 30 minutes, and we'll go from there. That is the way I do it, and that's the way it keeps its gloss. We'll go ahead and bake it, and we'll take a look once it's all done. So we got the hood all out of bake, and it's got an awesome gloss, but you can already notice that we started to do a little bit of wet sanding, and I can tell you right now, nothing is ever perfect, and that's the whole purpose behind this video, to show you even at the professional level there will be some little dirt nibs here and there. What we went ahead and done is we bridged all the little tiny little dirt nibs together, and we went ahead and sanded them down with 2000. So let me show you what that looks like. Now, the dirt nibs were very tiny, but it is our job to make sure they are removed. Now, some jobs come out a little bit cleaner, some come out a little bit dirtier, but it is our job to be as transparent as possible and show you that this is a normal thing on flat surfaces. It happens. The main purpose of the video, though, is to show you how to spray that hood. That way you have a nice thick clear coat layer on there so you can wet sand and buff. If I had sprayed it and there was a lot of orange peel in it, it'd be much tougher to buff, and that's not what we want. We want to be able just to come over the surface and sand it down and buff it really nice. And this is not a buffing video, so we're not going to get too detailed into how we do it, but we're just going to show you a quick time lapse of what we do. So the purpose of the video, once again, guys, don't get discouraged. You got a hood, it came out a little bit dirty. This is regular things that we do at a professional level. Do not feel bad about it. So I'll go ahead, I'll buff it up, and we'll show you what it looks like at the end. And until then, this is Brian from Paint Society reminding you, don't overthink it, it's just paint. Let's get to work.